I am so in love with this project. Like, I have dreams about this project, and I just, like, whenever, no matter what I'm doing, I'm just wishing I was working on this project. I don't know that I've ever been so drawn to a design. Mandobug Crafts, episode 114. What's up, everybody? My name is Amanda, but you may know me on the internet as Mandobug, and this is my crafty podcast where I hopefully inspire you on your making journey as I share mine, which lately it has been a knit and crochet design journey. That's mostly what I've been talking about in these past few episodes, and I don't think it's going anywhere. So this episode, I have knitting and crochet to talk about, and so let's start with something I've learned. So I just got done taking an awesome class called Math for Knitters, and then in the ad it was like, let Excel do the work. This class was offered by Luke of Wool Enthusiast. I'll put his stuff on the screen here, and it was absolutely amazing. I think it was more intended for anyone looking to modify a knitting pattern they already have. So he took a knitting pattern and walked us through how we would use Excel to make that pattern custom fit us, and we could make changes wherever we wanted to. And that was really great. But what was even better about Luke's class structure was there wasn't a ton of people in the class, so he was able to tailor it to all of our needs. When we did our introduction, he was like, hey, why are you taking this class? Let me know. And he was able to touch on some of the topics that we were interested in outside of his basic plan for the class. So he also touched on grading patterns a bit, and that's really what I was there for. I've taken a super basic, kind of outdated grade sweater patterns using Excel class. Excel has come a long way since then, and so I was excited to take a class to learn some new tips and tricks, and I definitely did. I learned a lot from Luke. I'm not going to share what I learned here. Just go take his class. I'll put the links down below in the show notes. I don't know when he's offering that class again next, but I highly recommend his classes. There was a lot of value in there. Coming from someone who's already taken a similar class and has already graded patterns, there was still a lot for me to take away. So I highly recommend any of Luke's classes based off of my experience with the Math for Knitters. And hopefully, I was telling him when we were talking about grading plus sizes that I'd really like to see him offering a how to be a more size-inclusive designer class, because he is a tech editor and a knitwear designer, so he has all of that information already. So if he offers that class, I will definitely be back again, because he did share a couple tips and tricks that he uses for grading plus sizes, but I know there's more to it that I would eventually like to learn. So yes, that is something I learned this week. Moving on to finished objects. I finished Jack's hat. Here it is. Oh, I'm so excited, and he loves it so much. I have not let him wear it. He keeps trying to wear it to school, and I'm afraid it's not going to come back. That boy would lose his hands if they weren't attached to him. I love him, but him and my daughter both, they lose things quite easily. I'm afraid this wouldn't come back, so I've kind of been keeping it from him. But he looks adorable in it. I'll share some of the pictures of him wearing the hat. He was a sport letting me take photographs of him. This pattern is the Birdfoot pattern that I released back in March. It is now April, oh my goodness. So last month I released the Birdfoot knitting hat pattern. Here's the original. So this is the adult large. I did grade this hat up to a 2XL, so it will fit a 25-inch head circumference, which happens to be the size head that David's dad has. I did not realize, because the Craft Yarn Council doesn't go up that high in sizes, I didn't know that that was a potential size worth grading for. And because I designed this hat specifically with men in mind, in my mind it needed to be a wide range of men's sizes. So it goes up to the 2XL. Side note, while I'm thinking about it, I learned in that Math for Knitters class discussing designing and grading with Luke that the Craft Yarn Council body standard measurements are pretty outdated, and there's much better ones out there. And I'll share the links below for that as well, because I don't think that's something that I should worry about sharing from his class. He just shared a resource with us, which was the ASTM, I believe that's correct, ASTM Standards. You can invest, you can buy, if you're a designer, you can buy these standards of measurements, and they've got them broken down by two sets for adult women, adult men, and then there's a teens and a children sizes. And he mentioned that he has found those to be more accurate than something like the Craft Yarn Council standards. So those are the standards I'm going to be using going forward with designing. But that was a whole side note. The birdfoot hat, the original hat pattern I knit using Mesa Skein Spade DK in the Winter Pine colorway. I really loved how this worked up for David. And then for Jack, I got him this awesome bright green from Schmutzerella Yarns. This is the Madness Takes Its Toll colorway on her groovy base. So the Spade DK is 100% superwash merino. No, got that backwards. It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon, whereas the Schmutzerella's Groovy is 100% superwash merino. So there's no nylon in this one, so my gauge was a little bit different, but not too far off that I couldn't just follow the child size in the pattern. And yeah, I'm super happy with the way that it turned out, and now the boys have semi-matching hats. And I was gonna share, I have enough to make another one if I wanted, which I'm not going to be making another one, but I am excited to have at least half a hank of this colorway left over, because I love pops of color like this with black, especially in my Halloween wheelhouse of like that pop of purple, this pop of green, a pop of orange with black. Like, I'm gonna save that. It's gonna be a happy stay and stash, because half a hank, half a skein, you can do something with that if you're doing a multicolored project. So that is my first finished object. My other two finished objects are kind of cheater finished objects, because all I did to finish them was sew buttons on them. I put buttons on another corner to corner linen cowl, which is a crochet cowl pattern that I designed and released 2 months ago, so back in February. And I had made this sample but hadn't gotten around to putting buttons on it. So here we are. We've got buttons. I really like these buttons that I chose for this cowl. I ordered 2 different ones because sometimes you can't tell off of the internet. I got them from Bennos Buttons. I'll put the links down below. And I just sewed them on this morning. And so now, I love the way this cowl, I love the way this cowl fits and looks. It's just, these bandana cowls are effortless to style, and that, I mean, isn't that one of the best things ever, is just to be able to make something and throw it on. Unlike a shawl, you don't have to worry about fastening it in a certain way. It's on, it's not going anywhere, it's gonna look this good all day. I mean, I guess unless you're doing something crazy like dancing, it might not stay put, but oh, I love the way this turned out. I'm loving the highly contrasted button choices for this pattern, just so that the buttons stand out more. I have a couple samples that I made where the button matched the color of the yarn so well that you couldn't see it, and I really like the buttons to have that nice pop. So this sample was crocheted using cattails yarns on her Persian base, which is the yarn the pattern calls for. The original sample photo is in the Snowballs colorway, and this one is aluminum Christmas trees. It's a Charlie Brown inspired colorway. Kat has a nice Charlie Brown inspired collection of colors. So I really like the way this one turned out. If you don't already know, this corner to corner crochet, the linen cowl, is a great pattern for working up variegated yarns. There is little to no pooling depending on the way the yarn was dyed, but it's a good way to break up that variegation and have not your typical pooling. If it's going to pool, it's going to be on the bias because this is worked from corner to corner in linen stitch. So it's not the corner to corner group double crochets. This is that single crochet, chain one, skip one, but where you work on the bias doing the increases and or decreases depending on the shape you're making. But yeah, so that is my other finished object. And then the other cheater finished object is I didn't even knit this sweater. This was a sweater that my friend Patricia, who is Madly Creative Me on Instagram, she knit it for herself and no longer wanted to have it. So it is now mine. She said she wasn't happy with the fit, but I'm happy with the fit. I love this sweater. It fits me perfectly, almost as if it was made for me, although I know that it wasn't, at least intentionally made for me. Maybe I was putting some good vibes out there. But now it has buttons. So I also got these buttons from Bennos Buttons, and yeah, I just popped them on the button band, and now I can button up this cardigan if I so choose, although I typically tend to wear my cardigans pretty much fully open. It might be nice to just button the first couple of buttons because this one is knit extra long, which I love my cardigans extra long. It doesn't stay around my, I mean, it's past my hips. It's around my full butt. You know, of your full bust measurement, my full butt measurement. It doesn't quite, it fits, but it doesn't want to, like, it's ready to pop. So I don't button that last button, but it still looks nice. So yeah, I put buttons on this. I don't remember if I mentioned this is the Antler Sweater by Tin Can Knits, and she knit it using Bumble Birch yarns. She knitted it like a fade. I don't know if the original pattern does that or not, but I really like it done this way. I'm not sure what the colorways are, but they did come from Bumble Birch. So yeah. Well, and then I do have another finished object, but I can't share it with you guys, and it's gone. So it was my magazine design. The due date was April 1st, in their office by April 1st. So that is long gone. I'm just waiting for the tech editors to look over it and approve it so that I can sign the contract. Once I sign the contract, I think I may be able to give you just a couple more details about what exactly all this is. But yeah, so that is done and on the way. And when I originally submitted designs to this magazine for it was their fall call that I responded to, I submitted 3 designs, and they took one and held another one, but then it turns out they might want the other 2 that I sent as well, which luckily I didn't send them off to anybody else. So I think it sounds like, I'm waiting for final approval, but it sounds like I'm going to be working on 2 designs for their issue following the one that I just sent the sample off for. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited to be able to share the news with you guys when I can. Nothing's even coming out until the end of this year, but it's still exciting, and I'm doing a ton of work behind the scenes. So if you're not seeing me finish a lot of things, it's because I can't share a lot of what I've been actually like super excited about behind the scenes. Just checking my notes here. Moving on to works in progress. I have been working on the 2 Ways to Knit It Right shawl. Just whenever I can. I'm at a point now where it's basically pretty decently long rows of garter stitch with the shaping in it. So where is the top and the front? Here we go. So I am almost done with the main body and ready for the border. So I am I'm here at this purple section, and it's about half the width that it needs to be the same as the other purple sections. And then once that's done, I'll pick up and finish the border, and then I can get this out to testers. But like I said, because I'm working on potentially two more magazine designs, this is probably going to have a slower release than I would typically do, just because they have deadlines and I necessarily don't have one. So This is the 2 Ways to Knit It Right shawl. I released a 2 Ways to Crochet It Right. This is going to be the knit version. And I'm using Teal Torch Knits TTK sock, which is a 75/25 superwash merino nylon. And I'm using the Sinking in My Soul colorway and a Sunday Kind of Love. I really like the way that these two play together, and I'm really excited to see how they turn up in the border, the way this design goes and the way I chose my colors. Once I finish this section and I start the border, it's going to be in the light color. So I'm really excited to see how that draws the eye and turns out overall. I do have one other work in progress, and I'm sure you're gonna get tired of me you're gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but it's a secret design. This one is not for a magazine. This one is for a personal design, but I'm really excited about it, and I really think it would be fun for it to be a mystery. So this is my Halloween mystery crochet along. I am so in love with this project. Like, I have dreams about this project, and I just, like, whenever, no matter what I'm doing, I'm just wishing I was working on this project. I don't know that I've ever been so drawn to a design. The only other exception is my Halloweb design. I was very drawn to that one too. That was my first pattern that I put out independently, and, well, independently for sale. And that one is just, it's one of my favorite shawls, and I know this one is either going to top that or be a very close second. I'm definitely finding my heart fulfilled when it comes to designing Halloween inspired patterns. So while that's not necessarily something for magazines, I have a feeling my personal independent designs are gonna start focusing more on that area, because it's what makes my inner goth child happy. So that is where I am. I blocked the swatch for this, and you guys, the swatch is this big because that's how big the repeat of my motif is, and it's awesome. It's so awesome. I'm gonna be putting in like leaking information about it in my monthly newsletters. So if you want to see sneak peeks of it, I'm not gonna fully give it away because I do want it to be a complete mystery, but I'm gonna be leaking information earlier on my newsletter than I am completely out in the all over the place public. So if you want to stay up to date on any patterns I'm releasing, any discounts I'm running, or these behind the scenes like this mystery crochet along design, you can sign up for my newsletter. I'll put links below. I also have links. I have a link tree and everything that you could sign up as well. Oh, and on my website, oh my gosh, side tangent, did I ever mention I relaunched my website? It's in such a better place now. It's a messy launch, but it's in so much of a better place than it was. All of my patterns are now available on my website, which is perfect timing with the whole thing about Ravelry, which I'll talk about in Let's Chat. But yeah, I've got my patterns on my website, and I've reconfigured my blog, so that's actually a little bit more functional. And yeah, so that's, I got sidetracked. Oh, I was talking about signing up for the newsletter. So yeah, you can do that on my website as well. And when you sign up, there are 2 different boxes you can check if you just want the patterns, discounts, and behind the scenes. But there's also a call for testers, which now that I have that option for subscribers, my call for testers are going to go out to those people first before I go out looking for more on social media. So if you're interested in testing any of my patterns or being notified, the first to be notified when I need a tester for a pattern, because spoiler alert, I'm gonna need testers for this mystery crochet along before it's released. So I don't want to release it and have there be any hiccups to everybody participating. I want a couple of testers that I can trust to test it for me before I release it. So yes, you can sign up to just be get my call for testers as well. Moving on to Let's Chat. today's Easter. This video probably won't be up in my today, but for me, today is Easter. So happy Easter to those of you that celebrate. And we had a really great time this weekend dyeing eggs. And I remembered to order bare yarn to use the leftover dye with. And actually, I ordered so much yarn. I ordered a hank for me, both of my kids, and then one for Grandma Lori. So I made sure to use 2 packets of dye just so that we would have enough to dye all 4 hanks. I was worried that just the leftovers from 18 eggs wasn't going to be enough to dye 4 hanks of yarn, nice vibrant colors. So I did go ahead and use 2 packs of the PAS, P-A-S, egg dyes to dye our yarns. And here they are. I think they turned out so good. And I did, especially because the kids each dyed their own, I used a little tip that I saw in a watercolor painting video, or at least that's where I think it came from. And it was that if you're not sure about, like, if you're not confident in color theory and you're afraid you're going to make something muddied, start with just 2 colors and possibly add a third, avoiding complementary colors because they make brown. So using colors that you know will match each other. So like with Jack, the first color he chose was red. And so I knew that red and yellow make orange. So it was safe for him to also grab the orange and the yellow, and we weren't going to have a bad time. Emily, same thing. The first color Emily grabbed was pink. Surprisingly, this is a very blue colorway, but yes, the first color she grabbed was pink. And then I made sure that we stayed in the red and blue makes purple range, right? And pink can work with that. So that's what we got here. And she did actually grab some of Jack's red, which is why we've got that spot right there. And then Grandma's favorite color is green, so we used the 2 different greens that came in the kit to make this color for her, which is similar, but not the same as Madness Takes Its Toll. You can see the difference. These are food-safe dyes. They're not going to be as great as your acid dyes that you get that the indie dyers use to dye yarn. This is not going to be as color fast as this, and you can tell it's not as vibrant either, but it's still a good color and it's a ton of fun. And because it's food safe, you don't have to stress about having dye specific containers or putting it in your oven. I heat set these yarns in the oven, and I used casserole dishes to do that. I'll insert footage so you guys can see what I'm talking about, but I used my casserole dishes, and it was like a low immersion, semi-regular immersion dye technique, so I wasn't worried about the yarn getting burnt when it was in the oven. I set the oven to 350 for 30 minutes, and the bath's fully exhausted, so it was super easy, no hassle. It was just overall a great time with the kids. And then the last yarn I made with the leftover colors, which was like a turquoise and some blue. And you can see because there wasn't a ton of dye left, there are white spots in this hank, but I feel like it looks all right. So I really am glad that I followed that tip about being careful with colors and avoiding the complementary colors to avoid brown, which I'm not hating brown, but I know you know what I'm talking about, where if you just, you play a little too hard when you don't know what you're doing and you get too muddy. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. The berry yarn that I ordered is called Hawrhorne. It's a DK weight, 100%. I'll put it on the screen because I left the tags in the kitchen. But yeah, that was our Easter fun. I mean, we also did cookies and some other Easter activities, but that was the yarn fun. Oh, the other thing I was going to talk about is each episode I've kept mentioning my hyper-focusing and how I've been working to manage, cope, live with that. It really can be a superpower, but it really can also be super distracting if you allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole in not the best times. So my latest plan with my hyper focusing is to have focused days. So I'm a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids, and I'm also venturing into knit and crochet design as a business on the side of being a stay-at-home mom, and I have a hard time balancing the two. And so what I've decided to do is have home focused days and work focused days. That way it allows me to work with my hyper focus. It's hard for me to hyper focus on a topic, pull out, and then grab a new one. I find that if I just can stay on one topic or one arena, it works a lot better for me. So if I have a day dedicated to home, we're making sure all of the chores are done, all of the meals are home cooked, all of the kids are getting all of their needs fulfilled. And then the next day is all about the business. Of course, I still have to take care of the kids too. So they get meals, but they might not all be from scratch cooked meals. You know what I mean? They might not get as much one-on-one time with me. So those, making sure I'm balancing those two by doing these focused days seems to be like it's going to be a good plan. And I've found out that like focusing my week that way, I'm really only working on my business, focusing on my business 3 days a week. There's going to be little things here and there that I do. I'm going to have to keep posting on social media, but it's not going to be like the hyper focus sit down and chart out this pattern and write out this pattern, or just like bury my head in the intense detail part of a pattern and create it. So yeah, that is the new plan. We will see how it goes. I will check back in if this works out. I'm hoping it does. One thing that's been great about this plan of only having 3 days where I'm focusing on work is my spreadsheets that I use to kind of check off my long-term goals and plans. There's only 3 days. So, and I know how much I can work in a day. Even working on my business full time as a focus for a day is only maybe 4 to 5 hours because of my mom responsibilities outside of work. And I know that I could put my kids in a daycare or hire someone to care for them so that I can work, but I'm not interested in doing that. So yeah. All that to say, that's what I'm working on. That's my plan. I'm a big lover of self-care and always striving to be the best version of myself as possible. So, and anything that can make my life a little bit easier and help me achieve the goals that I want to achieve, which is ultimately what I define my success to be. So, that's what I'm sharing. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was Ravelry. So, I have decided to join along with everybody logging out of Ravelry over the accessibility issues and the gaslighting that's been going on. I really have a problem with people being gaslighted, and that is literally anyone being gaslighted. Nobody should be treated that way. And so I'm standing with everybody who is standing up against Ravelry accessibility by logging out and staying logged out. And if that means that I never log in again, I'm okay with that. There are other ways to be a part of the fiber art community. I have really enjoyed Ravelry for what it's been to me, but if it's not going to be able to be that for everyone, it just doesn't seem right and it doesn't sit well with me. So then I don't want to be a part of it, and I will go somewhere else that is more accessible and more open to everybody. So as a knit and crochet designer, Ravelry is a great place for people to find your patterns if you don't have a following. That is how I got my first couple of sales on my first independently published pattern, was on Ravelry. But it's not worth it to me. There are other avenues, there are other ways to sell patterns than Ravelry. There are designers who don't use Ravelry at all and still make plenty of sales to continue affording using knitwear and crochet design as a way to supplement their income or be their full stream of income. So I'm totally okay leaving Ravelry for good if that's what's necessary. I'm just kind of sitting back and watching what's happening, and it doesn't look like Ravelry is going to change anything, so I don't know that I will be going back, but currently I'm logged out. I don't plan to go back. I don't plan to link Ravelry down below. I now have my patterns on my website and Etsy. There are alternative places. Speaking of, if you also would like to stand with people who are fighting against the accessibility of Ravelry, there are other places you can go. The two other places that I know of that have basically everything that Ravelry had, which is patterns, community, and inspiration, and some of them even have project notebooks, are Lovecrafts and Ribblr. Those are the two places that I know of. I actually have patterns on Ribblr. I've slowly been figuring it out. It's a little harder to get your design on there as a designer, but what's nice on the user end is that every pattern is the same format, which allows you as a user to switch back and forth between inches and centimeters. So both are not listed in the pattern. There's an option where you just tap inches or tap centimeters, so you don't have to worry about messing that up. There is a way to completely translate crochet patterns from UK to English, which is really awesome. And then there's also ways that you can mark up and take notes on your pattern as well. So I haven't actually used patterns that way on Ribblr, but I've seen some of the possible features as from the designer end uploading to their platform. And they have sewing patterns too. I did get a free cute pumpkin tote that I'll probably sew who knows when, but it is super cute, and it's free and in my library on Ribblr. So yeah. So yeah, that was everything that I wanted to talk about in this episode. I am aiming to record every 2 weeks, so hopefully I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Until then, happy crafting. Bye!